Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the latest Off The Ball Roadshow in association with Heineken Rugby Club. On stage tonight, the class of 2009, Michael Cheika, Malcolm O'Kelly and Shane Jennings. Grand Slam winning British and Irish Lion Stephen Ferris, World Rugby Player of the Year winner Keith Wood. But first, give it up for Off The Ball's version of John Inverdale. He's our own Mr. Rugby. It's Joe Malloy.
Hello, Olympia. How are we all doing? It's great to have you here. Thanks so much. We love doing these nights, and they're great fun, and you're all very welcome. A big thanks to our friends at HeinekenRugbyClub.com. They make this all possible. They let us get the best guests, and we've got some doozies this evening. Leinster fans in the house? Yeah. I mean, Michael Cheika, kind of legendary status, I would think. Yeah, he's on the way very shortly. Any Ulster fans? Great, yeah. They're coming for you on Saturday. We've got some Munster fans, surely. Excellent, you're represented as well. So in due course, we're going to have Shane Jennings with us. Yeah. We're going to have Malcolm O'Kelly. Who doesn't love Big Mal? We're going to have Stephen Ferris, just for ye three here. But I need a co-host, don't I? I mean, I'm a little bit lonely this evening, so can you give it up for my beautiful assistant? Keith Wood, everyone! Hello.
How are you?
And can I say, you do look especially beautiful this evening.
I'm feeling very attractive. I'm wearing red socks for all the Munster fans who are there. I thought when I looked at the list originally, there were just too many Leinster people involved. Yeah. So I want to try and take them down a peg or two if I can.
Good. Well, you're in the right place. Let's get things moving. Our first guest, someone we've wanted to have on for ages, as you can imagine, but logistics not always the easiest. The only man to win a Heineken Cup and a Super Rugby title. 2015 World Rugby Coach of the Year, brought Australia to a World Cup final, has won a rugby championship, brought European glory to Leinster. We're thrilled he's here. He's travelled a long way. He's just arrived today. We do appreciate it. Let's wake him back up and I think show the appreciation. Michael Cheika, everyone! Have a seat.
Ready on me. Yeah.
Oh. That's a welcome.
That's lovely, yeah.
That is a welcome.
I'll take that every day. Can we go back out and do it again? Do you have to do two takes here on the theatre?
Michael Cheika, everyone.
Yeah,
You must feel the warmth when you come back to Dublin. Do you get back often?
Well, I saw the sun this morning. That was great when I got off the plane. No, I've been back a few times. Never for an extended period, just to come watch a game here or there or whatever. We've got such great memories of being here and huge part of our lives. First, you know, I suppose my kids were born here, or 3 of my 4 kids were born here, and I don't know, I just had such a great time here. I think sometimes I don't come back for long periods because you miss it, you know what I mean? So you just whip in, whip out, don't get too attached.
Arsene Wenger left London still not knowing his way around. You know, he just knew the way to the office. Did you get a feel for Dublin? Like, have you been here, for instance?
Definitely. I've been here.
Who did you see here?
I saw Faithless here.
Right.
No, you don't expect that, do you? Yeah. Yes. No, I didn't think you'd expect that. I personally didn't expect it either, you know what I mean? But it was good. It was good. I don't think I'd had the same stuff that they'd had on the night, but...
For legal reasons, they had nothing on the night.
But I enjoyed it. It was good, and it's a great venue, for sure.
And Dublin generally, did you get out and about much or see much of the country, or were you too busy?
Ah, for sure. No, we had... we loved it. You know, it was interesting, because I came here first, I was single, right? So it was... Yeah, why are you laughing? What's the story there? You should laugh when you say I got married. Then that would be the issue. Who'd marry him, you know? It's... So... I had a couple of years as a single person here, and then I went back to Australia and just in a chance meeting met my wife, who... Hopefully she's not watching. I only ever had one. I want that assured to everybody, right? And she ended up coming and living over here with me for a few years as well. So
How long did you know her when you convinced her to come over?
well, it sort of went like this. It's quite an interesting story. I think I'd coached here for a year, and I was going back for the break in the summer.
So that's about 06.
The summer here that you guys have here, which goes for about a week. Yeah. So I went back to Australia, and at the time, Ireland were playing in New Zealand. So I thought I'd go give the lads a bit of moral support. Not they really cared if I was there or not. So when I went with a mate of mine, and we went and checked in on the airline, and she was working on the check-in. And he knew her, he was trying to get us upgraded. I said, let's just get Mick Dawson to pay for it, you know what I mean? He could have upgraded us. And we went economy, and we didn't get the upgrade, so I don't know why I got a number, but I was able to get her number, and then we had a date there, and we sort of long distance for a year, and then I said, come and live over here, which she did, and c'est la vie, yeah.
Wow, great.
Is that part of the your heart of being an Aussie is coming over here and loving it and enjoying it?
I grew up playing rugby league, right? And so from very working class, you know, my parents Lebanese immigrants to Australia, and I changed to play rugby because I genuinely thought I'd get a free trip overseas. I'm serious. And that's sort of what happened. I changed to play rugby, and within 2 or 3 years I was playing in France. You could play both seasons then, so 7 months, 5 months back in Australia, and just did that for 7 years. So I think Aussies, we love to, it's so far to come here. It's you love to, we've got this culture of travelling, you know, which is genuinely reciprocated by the Irish, who are now occupying my home suburb en masse.
It's our suburb now.
Yeah, I know. It was funny. Leo Cullen, who is now doing a great job coaching Leinster, came down when he was, give him a round of applause, good on you. He came over to, you know, he said, can we come watch him when I was at the TARS, you know, can I come and watch a bit and have a look and see what's going on? So he stayed down in the Coogee Bay Hotel, in a sort of apartments there. He wasn't in the pub area, he was in the hotel area. And so I'd go pick him up in the morning to take him, and he'd walk down the street to get me. And the blokes would do, hey Leo, how you going, Leo? It was like a bloke was in his own suburb. He just turned up and he knew everyone on the street already because they were all from his hometown probably. But no, it's great. In fact, the Sydney Irish are the sort of lower team, the feeder team for Randwick, which is my home team. Yeah. So they've got a nice little crew going there, yeah.
You mentioned your parents there. It is amazing what can happen in the space of one generation. You know, so your father, Joseph, 1950, he would have been 20 years old in Lebanon, and Australia said, we need some workers, and he hopped on a flight, it seems.
That's it, yeah, 7 days back then it took to get to Australia on an aeroplane, if you could get there. That's serious. And he landed on Christmas Day in 1950, and of course I suppose there's a bit of that spirit, you know, like you leave home, you probably know you're never going to see your family again. It's not like you just can get the money and travel, and that real sort of, I suppose, risk-taking, but looking for a new adventure and experience. And he had one phone number, I think, you know, and the taxi driver, where are you from, you know, because he couldn't really speak English properly. He told him he was from Lebanon, so he dropped him in an area called Redfern, which is in the heart of the city, and it's, you know, it's hardcore, home of the South Sydney Rabbitohs, for anyone who follows rugby league, which then made us all follow that team. And my old man, who, you know, never laced up a footy boot in his life, was an absolute expert when we were playing growing up, you know. He'd come home, he'd tell you what you did wrong and what you did right, and which wasn't very much, and then, you know, what you did wrong again, and you shouldn't have belted that guy. But he was good at taking us for a burger and something after training as well. So it is amazing, you know.
And he did really well for himself, though, didn't he? Like, I mean, started off, I would presume, working in, I think, a factory and sewing factory, but ran his own business ultimately, an amazing man.
Yeah, that's what immigrants, that's why you emigrate, to get a better, you know, Ireland's a very similar situation to the Lebanon in many ways. Through a small country, there's been different versions of conflict, lots of immigrants, a big diaspora, and all looking for a better life and another experience so that they can get another level for their families going forward, which he certainly did for us, along with my mum.
Yeah, your mum from Lebanon as well. Did
Yep.
you feel, growing up, did you feel Australian or did you feel Lebanese or a nice mixture of the two?
Depends. At dinner time, I felt Lebanese for sure. Like, the tucker was excellent, you know. So, but it's an interesting. You're Australian first because that's who you are. That's where you're brought up, and that's where you love being. But you know you've got that other heritage. That the first time I went back to Lebanon as an adult, I really felt it strongly, you know. And I've been back there many times now. In fact, I have a great memory when I was here in Ireland. I went, unfortunately, one of my cousins went to Lebanon and he passed unexpectedly. And I went there to go to the funeral. And it was just before pre-season here in the second season. And the day I was supposed to leave was the day that Israel bombed Lebanese country and then thus the airport as well. So I was sort of stuck. And a lot of the Westerners waited until they got evacuated maybe a month later through Cyprus or whatever. But I said, shit, I've got to get back for pre-season. I can't, wait. So I hired a driver, Alawite Syrian guy, and it was the most interesting 24 hours of my life, trying to get out of a border. We tried about 4 or 5 borders, crossings, couldn't get out. And through a lot of bribing, and it was pretty scary at the time. And I remember the lads knew I was over there, so like guys like Dennis, Hickey and Shane Horgan, etc., who were giving me a ring, seeing if I was coming back, because we've already had 4 coaches in 4 years. We can't lose another one the next year, not to the war. So it was pretty. It was in retrospect, it was really interesting. At the time, it was pretty scary, because I was sitting in no man's land in the middle of Lebanon and Syria, and you could hear the fighter planes, because it's only a small country, Lebanon. By the time they bomb, they need the length of the country nearly to turn around. So you didn't know what was going on, and it was an interesting experience. I was very happy to get back here when I got back here. Yeah.
So there is the potential. Well, they could drop one on us right now.
Who's that?
The planes going over. That must be crossing your mind.
No, they wouldn't do it now. What you mean is in back then? Mate, I didn't know what was going on.
No,
I was thinking,
I'm sure we're okay now.
Mate, I was thinking that Faithless had left some of their stuff behind. You'd had it.
No, I'm sure we're safe.
Are you tripping already? I don't know what's going on here. But
no, in that 24 hours
mate,
where you're there in the car, that must cross your mind.
If you've never been in that zone before, like if you've never been in a conflict zone before, you don't know what's going on. There's no contact with the outside. There was a period there where, it must have been 200,000 people in this no man's land between the two borders, which I never even knew existed, and right on the most northern border of Lebanon and Syria. And it was, I think I can handle most situations. I can consider myself a tough guy. Like I was hiding in the corner, sucking my thumb. There was shooting and people trying to get into the places where you're trying to get a visa, and it was crazy. And then once you cross the border, it was like peace and calm, and just drive up to Damascus. This was before the conflict in Syria, and got to Damascus at about 1 in the morning, and then just stayed in a cafe until about 4. And we got to the airport, and they just took you. You know what I mean? They didn't care what ticket you had, because it was a pretty full-scale evacuation at the time. Yeah. So I got back for pre-season. The boys didn't like it because I got them running up the hill pretty quickly. They wish I'd stayed there and got locked away. It's no, it was good.
You've been back since, haven't you?
Yeah.
And they are looking to play rugby, is that right?
Well, they are playing rugby down there. They've got a team in, I think, they're in Asia as part. I went there. Asia Rugby asked me to go there at the end of last year, and I was just amazed that boys and girls playing, rugby in these schools that we went to, and their senior team actually won, I think, the 4th division, of Asia. They beat with mainly homegrown players. Obviously, a lot of them have got different educations, but not bringing players from overseas. They had only 3 or 4 players from who are Australian Lebanese or English Lebanese who went back and played in the team, and they were really You know, they'd made a movie about it and everything, so it was really great for me to see that, because I thought, you know, no one had an idea, you know. But I always remember the story about my cousin when he first came to Australia, and he would have been when he was about 13. So you just think about it like this: they've never seen these types of sports, contact sports, you know. So he gets put into school, the same school that I went to. This was before I went to that school. Obviously, he was well older than me. And he tells me the story of how he had to play rugby because you had to play at school. And he hadn't seen the game. He didn't know what was going on, couldn't speak English. He gets the ball, the guy crash tackles him. So the game goes on. He runs off the field to try to find a brick and starts chasing the guy. And I'll never forget whether my other relative, my uncle, we were all uncles and cousins, you know what I mean? Doesn't matter if you really are. He came from Brazil. He was on holidays, and this was in '88. And Randwick, my club, was playing the All Blacks. They were on tour. It was one of the few times they played a club team who were the champions the year before. And our small suburban ground was like packed to the rafters, stands, people on the hills trying to watch the game. So he had a ticket for the game. He left after 20 minutes. He said to my man, "This is barbaric. How can you let your son do this? You know what I mean? You're crazy. I'm not watching anymore. I'm out of here." And so it's totally foreign to them. But it was in the last World Cup, it was unreal, because it's where you get a great opportunity to, you know, go to different countries and, you know, be seen in different countries. And I saw a lot of press in, you know, Arabic newspapers, which I couldn't understand, obviously, but I saw my picture there, and then got to do a few interviews in Pidgin Arabic and Lebanese dialect that I can speak, just to sort of, you know, I think that people in that area are watching and enjoying rugby is a bit amazing for me, yeah.
If I'm not mistaken, that game against New Zealand in '88 that your relative left, is that the one where Wayne Shelford knocks you down and you get up and say, "Is that all you got?"
Oh, I don't know if I said that now. I was probably crying, you know, I mean, something like that. But it was...
Eddie Jones says you're an excellent sledger.
Well, that was yeah, I was good at it, yeah. He wasn't too bad himself, just quietly.
I wouldn't think so.
No, he was pretty handy, yeah.
You played for Australia under 21s?
Yeah.
And you were in the Institute of Sport there? You were progressing along, or you were in the mix?
They had, it wasn't really my style, that stuff, you know. I got invited. That was when it started becoming a bit more, you know, organised. And I got invited to go Institute of Sport, and they had a rugby program, but I wasn't keen on that. I was more keen to come away and play overseas. Those things change your life. So I played 6 or 7 years, France and Italy, and back in Australia, and then, so you can show how it changes your life. I had no tertiary education, and then when I went back to Australia, I had to get a job, right? Like, it was just 96, so the professionalism was just starting, but I thought, I've got to get a job, you know. So I looked in the job ads, and I saw a job for a fashion designer. Like, why are you laughing? I'm in a suit. No, I understand why you're laughing, to be honest. And her name is Colette Dinnigan, so she's a very well-known designer in Australia. And she wanted a business manager, and she wanted someone who spoke French and Italian, which I'd learnt playing in those two countries. And then I just lied about the rest. And she's not going to be watching the podcast, is she?
It's too late now.
So, and got the job. And then from there, I stayed there and then started my own business after that. So that's how it changes.
We'll come to that in a second. But is it true, the story, that you're in Bob Dwyer's office? This is before you head off for France and Italy. And, well, you tell the story. You're sort of nodding as if it is true, but it just seemed a bit too...
No, it wasn't Bob's office. It was a guy, the guy who ran the club was a guy called Jeff Sales. So he was your classic club rugby legend, you know. He could scull a bottle of Captain Morgan's in one go, you know what I mean? And like, I just couldn't believe it when I got to rugby and these guys were there, and they were, so I started working at the club behind the bar, you know, when I first in the clubhouse. And he was a great rugby coach, but he wasn't a very organised runner of the club, right? So you go into his office and there was just a pile of papers on his desk, and the safe was wide open, amongst other things. And one day I went in there to put some stuff in his office, and I saw a little bit of paper saying, you know, number 8 wanted, or back rower, I think it said, I want a back rower for France or something like that. I saw it, and I just took the paper. and rang the guy. And the guy was, he was the representative of Remy Martin, you know, the alcohol brands in Australia. And I called him up and I said, oh yeah, Jeff told me to ring you, you know what I mean? And then he was connected to Bob. Bob had put him in contact with Jeff, and then that's sort of how it started. And then I came, that was at Cast, when I started in Cast, yeah.
Wow. I mean, sorry, Keith, just wait. Was it not your dream to stay and play for Australia? If you're in the under-21s, I would have thought, God, it's obvious what my route in life here is, not playing for Castres in France.
Mate, I didn't have any, well, I didn't really know. I was just enjoying it. I think that there's, even now when the game's professional, enjoyment's everything, you know, and that fuels ambition. If you're not enjoying what you do, you can never get to where you want to go, you know. And yes, I often used as an excuse, well, they're not going to pick me, or they're not going to do that. You know, I mean, I took that shortcut, and if I had that time again, maybe I would have stayed and fought harder to play for the national team, because obviously it's a dream. I would say to the guys that I coach now, you know, I'm the person best placed to tell you how much of an honour it is to have that jersey, because I never had one. And that's where you see it in retrospect. But when you're doing it, you're just enjoying it. And I still believe, yeah, I'm good enough, I can do that and make it as well, you know what I mean? As long as I go well when I'm back home. Yeah. Didn't happen, but that's the way it goes.
That was actually my question, Joe, so I spent too much time with you. But I was trying to look at it because for myself, when I look back on my career, my rugby career, I would think that I missed out on the fact of some of the fun. So I never really managed to go overseas or play overseas. And I had a few offers, and I never took them. I wanted to play for Ireland. But it was at the end of the career, it's serious all the way from the start to the finish. And you try and have a bit of fun, and you do have a bit of fun. But I never quite got myself to that point of where I was ever going to risk not playing for my country. So I've asked that of a couple of different guys. I asked it of Andre Voss, who was captain of South Africa and left at 26 years of age. He said, well, I don't think they're going to pick me again. I could never quite understand why he wouldn't stay and fight for it. Was that a big issue for you? Or
at the time, it wasn't. Look, now, I would have been one of the few kids from my background playing rugby in Australia at that time, you know what I mean? So I've always been a sort of outsider, I suppose, in rugby. Like to say that I'm coaching Australia now, to me, I still have to pinch myself, you know what I mean? It's such an honour, and to be able to represent. And yes, I do think that not staying to fight was maybe not the greatest decision, but like I said, in retrospect, but I still wouldn't change anything.
do you think it made you a better coach?
I don't know. I can't say that for sure.
Did anyone tell you not to go?
Not to go where?
To France.
No one was even talking to me. I don't know what was going on. I just...
Did your I don't know, your dad, as soon as he got into the rugby, did he not think, well, I guess it's hard, he understands the joy of travel?
Well, my mum, she wouldn't come to the games. Every time she came to the game, I got sent off. So she wasn't allowed to come to any games, right?
Was there a connection between you getting sent off?
No. But no, it was different back then too, and because I come back and play the season at home, so you play both seasons.
Yeah.
So I was still able to get picked. I just had to play good enough in the time that I was there.
Yeah.
And mate, I live. Like I've got a great opportunity to be involved in national, international rugby now, and the adrenaline that's involved, even just being on the sidelines, is outrageous.
I guess life has kind of worked out. Something I should have asked 5 minutes ago when you brought it up. Did your dad ever get home to see his parents again after leaving at 20?
Not to see his parents. He went back, but not before his parents passed.
God, it's such a toll, isn't it?
Oh, look, it's a common story, you know what I mean? For better life for your kids, for yourself, and more for your kids, and that's what we'll continue to do always. We'll always want to give a better life to the people that we bring into the world, whether at whatever level it is, whether it's even staying at home or going abroad or looking for better opportunities. That's what we do.
When you went to work for Colette Dinnigan, did you suddenly think, God, I love fashion? Or was it very much a business thing and you had your languages, which you wouldn't have had if you hadn't traveled? Did you discover a love of fashion, or was it, you can make money in this?
But I don't think I really loved fashion. No.
Grow to love it.
Listen, when you're sitting backstage in the Paris runway show and it's all happening, it's pretty good. You're loving fashion. It's pretty good. Right.
So you enjoyed the work? It was exciting?
No, what I loved was the contradiction in terms of being able to work in that environment during the week and then go and bash people playing footy on the weekend.
Okay.
I think that, or get bashed, you know what I mean? I think that there's something about that contradiction, you know, and the guys would sledge me too about it, you know, the other teams would sledge me about, oh, yeah, you haven't got your lingerie on today, have you? You know what I mean? Like, so
there's an image no one needs.
No, exactly. But, mate, I really love that different worlds, you know. I've always had that sort of different worlds approach to footy.
And the decision to set up your own company, Live Fashion, is that the name of the company?
Yeah.
That was around 2000 you did that? Mm-hmm. So, your own distribution company, I read it secured the rights to a jeans brand made famous by Victoria Beckham. No, that's true enough.
That was later on.
Later
on, yeah. We started off in that sort of denim world, yeah.
Right. Incredibly successful. Like, you're now doing very well for yourself by all accounts, financially independent. Were you scared, you know, you set up your own business, between doing the accounts, taxes, regulations, moving into different countries, all of the stuff that would scare anyone setting up their own business?
Taxes? You have to pay, do you? I forgot about that. No, mate, no.
Just go for it.
Yeah. Well, like, you've got a plan, obviously, and you've got to learn about stuff and make sure that you can instruct correctly. So you're obviously using experts in different fields, but you can't just not have some knowledge of what you need to instruct them and how you need to instruct them so they can get the job done for you. Otherwise, they will get a job done and charge you for it, and you won't get anything from it. And it was great for me to learn about how to manage people and lead people and motivate and console, and sometimes, you know, I messed it up, how to recover from the mess ups. And also take calculated risks with my own money and with my business partner's money, and enjoy it as well. Like, I've still got friends from the first trade fairs. So the other day, or today when I got here, I walked down the road from where I'm staying to Costume. It's a store here in, those girls I met at the first trade fair we ever did. I'm still friends today, you know what I mean, from whenever that was, in the early 2000s. And it was like never planned, like most things that we did, you know, and we were lucky because we were dealing with the Americans who weren't that big on export at the time, right? So, we basically went across the country looking at what we might be able to get as the first brand to start us off. And we found the first one we went to, which was in New York. We finished in LA. Then I said, well, I'll go back over. I went back over to this place, just rocked up, knocked on the door and said, oh, we've got this business in Australia. And, you know, I may have, you know, embellished a little bit. And next thing you know, I was sitting with the designer and we ended up having a big night out on the drink in New York. And then the next day he gave me a whole sample range. I took it back home. Wow. And it sort of goes like there. And then, you know, told him we had a big setup in Europe. I may have embellished a little bit, I don't know.
Lying is key.
No, it's embellishment. Okay. It's not lying. We planned to have a big setup in Europe, which we got in the end anyway. So, mate, it was good. It's great. It was a great education for me, and, you know, it helped me a lot with coaching as well, how to deal with people. And because, I was sort of, I was just getting that was all just moving when I started coaching. So.
Does that give you a sense of freedom, having the financial independence, a successful business that you can fall back on if it doesn't work out for you? You know, but does it give you a sense of freedom in making your decisions, that you're not doing it to see that, well, I might get sacked for this, I can actually make a stronger decision?
Yeah, of course. It's the ultimate freedom. You know, I'll never, you know, the times where you can make decisions and not compromise, because the minute, put it this way, the minute you got to, for me, the minute I'd have to start coaching to pay my mortgage would be the minute I wouldn't do it, because you'd have to compromise yourself too many times, because not only as a coach, you don't just have to lead downwards, you've got to try and lead upwards as well, because there's people who you report to and answer to that you've got to try and guide in a certain direction as well, because you think it'll be the right thing for the team, not because you think you know it all. And that's not always an attractive thing for teams as well, to have someone like that.
Can you almost care about it? Can you almost care about it more?
Definitely care about it more. Yeah. It would be very difficult for me to, for example, I haven't coached a lot of different teams, I suppose, but I would find it very hard to coach another team in the same country as a team in the same competition as a team I've coached already, because then it almost devalues all the words I've spent on that team that I was with first, you know. So that's always something I've believed in.
That's interesting, yeah. So you're moving in very different circles. Like, as ever with someone in the public eye, there's lots of rumours. Is it right that you met Beyonce and didn't recognise her?
She's not going to be watching this, is she?
Unlikely.
Through the fashion thing, right, you got to meet, through the designers,
yeah, sure,
you got to meet a lot of those people. I don't know. That's...
But like,
mate, if you're not into that, if you're not into the music thing, then you won't know who they are, will you?
The music thing.
Well,
you came to Faithless and you don't know Beyonce. I just...
yeah, but mate, it depends on your...
It's kind of hard to avoid, though, you know? It's like, I'm not into politics, who's Donald Trump? You just sort of know Beyonce.
Well, no, you don't. You know what I mean? So before the guy...
He loves Kylie only, that's it.
No, so the Derek Foley was here before. He was asking me some questions. You know, the journalist guy?
Yeah.
He loves his music, right? So he was asking me about we had this thing about the poker face or whatever. It came up about, we used to use a little picture of a poker face, and I'd show it for the lads. It was supposed to be about an attitude thing, right? And he said to me, so do you prefer Lady Gaga or I didn't even know Lady Gaga sung a song called Poker Face. So it's impossible for me to know if that thing, but he was totally convinced that I would know that and I was not telling the truth. But if you don't run in those circles, well, you're never going to know, are you?
I mean, I don't run in those circles, but I know who Beyonce is. Look, we'll leave it there. I wanted to know if it was true or not. It's good to know it was true. Yeah. Was she offended? Probably not.
Later on in that one, that same weekend, I ended up having with those guys, these American guys, I had dinner with with the guy from Queen, who had the big curly hair,
Brian
the
May.
guitarist,
Brian May.
Yeah, and the guy from
Barack Obama.
No, I know him for sure. Famous Irish World Aid.
Bob Geldof.
Yes.
Did you know him?
Not before then.
So hang on. Where were you
He was
during Live
interesting
Aid?
because I was sat next to him.
Where were you during Live Aid? What were you doing with your time?
I don't know, mate. I don't. Well, put it this way: when the 2003 World Cup was on in Australia, I was on the beach in Brazil, so I didn't see a game. Didn't see.
Yeah, I know, but I was asking about Live Aid. Not the
Yeah.
World Cup.
I'm trying to get off the topic because I don't remember when it was.
1985 would it have been? 86?
I wasn't
84?
I wasn't even
84,
born. I don't
85,
think.
yeah.
I don't think I was born. I wasn't born then. I don't think. 84.
Any other famous encounters? There's a game in this.
It's interesting, you know, because you get to. I've got to meet a few different people who I wouldn't have expected I would ever get to meet, you know. So
We want to talk Leinster. We're going to do that in 1 second. If we can skip ahead to round off this chat in so much as we can about your life and your career. Australia, as you said, I can only imagine what an honour it is to suddenly find yourself coaching the country. I mean, you kick off in the most unbelievable fashion. A World Cup final, your World Rugby Coach of the Year. That must have been just an unbelievable rush. What are your big memories of that time?
Yeah, I remember losing the final.
Really? Is that?
Yeah.
That's the lingering feeling.
Well, yeah, because don't get me wrong, love every game I ever am involved with the team and coaching Australia. It's like a dream, you know. So I'm not taking anything of that for granted and never do. But you know, when you see the other team holding up the trophy, because that's why you're doing it, that's the part that stays with you, I suppose, unfortunately. But there's a really good picture of that tournament of the team. It must have been the night before the final, I think they were having a team photo, and then one of the players took a selfie with all the players in the background, and you just see everyone smiling, laughing, enjoying, and that's a precursor to success. So maybe we didn't have as good a time as we needed to before the game because we didn't win, you know, but
16-3 down at half-time, fought back to within 4 points with 10 minutes to go. Was it a shell-shock dressing room at half-time, World Cup final? We're 16-3 down.
No, mate, I've been in dressing rooms much further behind than that. Here a couple of times too, definitely. And no, never shell-shocked. There's always a way to get it back. If one team can score that amount of points in one half, the other team can score that amount of points in the other. It's not... No, just, I suppose, disappointed that we couldn't finish the run off, you know. And I think that as wonderful a tournament as it was for us and a lot of the memories, that's the end goal is to take the trophy home, you know.
There was stories from 2015 that the Aussie players were in the fan zones before some of the other games and everything like that. They seemed to have an awful lot of crack with it. Is that missing from an awful lot of the game?
For sure. There's not a lot of scope for it to happen anymore. We're so boxed in with different rules and regulations, and got to be here at this time, and everyone making everyone arrive here, and this bus has got to be there, and that guy's got to be there. You know, you got to wear this shirt and not that shirt in this place, and this shirt in that place. Like, it's crazy, you know. Like, at the end of the day, well, yeah, look, we're gonna have a big year this year, big tournaments to play, etc. But we're also I'm going to make sure that we relax and enjoy the ride. I suppose that's part of it. You know, you would know about it. You know, with the teams you've been involved with, just being relaxed doesn't mean you're down on intensity. It just means that you believe that when the game comes, you'll enjoy what you do, even when it's hard. Because when we talk about enjoyment, I'm not just talking about enjoying the easy things. I'm talking about enjoying the hard things as well. Yeah.
It's fascinating to get that insight, because I wasn't sure almost what your state of mind would be about rugby, given what a tough year it's been for Australia. I'm sure people looking in from afar know how tough 2018 has been. 4 wins in 13. We saw lots of headlines, you know, worst run since 1958 for Australia, you know. Yeah. And I remember talking about you on the show in December, and there was this sense that Rugby Australia were going to review your position and were you going to survive, and it just seemed like again from afar, thoroughly miserable kind of season. Has it been as miserable as it's looked?
From a results point of view, it wasn't pleasant, put it that way.
Yeah.
But mate, if you're going to cry about it every time you get knocked down and sulk, and look for an excuse somewhere else, well then you're not going to go anywhere. You got to take the punches that you take, and you got to turn them into something else. And that's finding not the positive, more fighting back from adversity or from not having success is really key if you want to be successful in anything. You know, in any one season you could have a number of failures before you succeed, and that's what it is. You know?
You had a brilliant quote before the England game in November just gone, and it just spoke of resilience, I thought, where you said your family members can pass away, you get married, have a child, they break a leg. You He said, we've gone into a world where we think everything has to be positive and got to be great, but melancholy and sadness are a part of human emotion. When it happens, you have to live it and then be optimistic about coming back.
Optimism is the key ingredient to resilience. Because when something bad happens, if you don't think that something good can happen the next day, well, then you'll just sulk.
Does your confidence get hit, your personal confidence in your ability as a coach get hit this year?
No, I get disappointed for the fans. Because that's my responsibility to make sure that the kids wake up the next day. If we're on tour, they wake up in the morning and they see us, with a good result, or that our fans who will stick by us no matter what, because, we're the national team.
But your confidence, I get that's the motivation. Were you kind of scratching your head going, why am I not getting this right? Did you have those moments?
No, not what am I going to do to not as when I say that I'm not questioning, more challenging myself as to what will be the thing that I do now to make the change.
Yeah.
And after the season, I had to spend a week really detailed with just myself, going through removing the emotional connections and going through exactly what I needed to do to make sure that this season was bright, you know what I mean, and more enjoyable, and that we don't live the peaks and troughs. We just build and build and build till we get to where we want to go.
How difficult was it to part with Stephen Larkin then, who's been along with you for so long?
Yeah, tough. Well, for friends,
Yeah.
Maybe not anymore. I'm not sure, but
he was your attack. He was your attack coach.
Yeah. Look, one thing's for sure. I don't blame anyone for anything. I always take responsibility when that's what you do as the head coach when things aren't going right for you, because you want to protect those people, and at the same time need to do things to try to shake it up a little bit. So very tough.
Yeah.
But I just think that sometimes you've got to make those. There wasn't just him. There was about 4 or 5 others that we made changes to in the team. And I'm sure that when we go to the World Cup, the team will be in the right position and feeling the right way, partly because of some of those changes of what's come in and what we needed to change.
Let's talk some Leinster. So, a lot of very happy Leinster fans, happy that you're here with us. And we are here with thanks to HeinekenRugbyClub.com. You can get lots of member-only benefits by signing up there, such as invites to events like these. So, really, so that you can't lie about anything from Leinster, we've brought along 2 of the eyewitness accounts. That's the situation here. So, they're both Leinster legends in their own right. So, will you give them a really warm welcome, please? Malcolm O'Kelly, Shane Jennings, everyone. Well, lads, you're very welcome.
Thanks, Joe.
Am I right in saying, Shane, you have been over to the Cheika residence in Australia?
I have. I've been in the Coogee Bay Road. Michael sent me down to Australia for a holiday for a few weeks to do a pre-season with the Brumbies. So I got off the plane. There was a Holden Commodore waiting for me in Sydney. Drove through Sydney and took about 4 hours to get to Coogee Bay Road, and his mother put me in a bed for a few hours, fed me, and then went down to Canberra. So she was a lovely lady, had that Lebanese food. When I went in, she was cutting her tomatoes and onions at the kitchen table. When I woke up, she was still cutting the same tomatoes and onions. And I got a proper feed and I went on my way, so yeah.
Very good. Mal, you're very welcome.
Thanks very much.
You were there when Michael arrived.
Yeah.
So Mick Dawson said he was a calculated punt. What were your impressions when he arrived?
To be fair, we didn't really know Michael. We knew Noxie, and we thought, geez, Noxie's a genius. So we were all quite excited. But it obviously was Czechs that was the real diamond. I think Leinster at the time we were in maybe a spot of bother, but we were in a time of flux. We had 2 coaches over a period of a couple of years, and Cheika brought that stability, great leadership, and really it was an exciting period. Leinster were at a low, but we came, under Cheika's tutelage, we came good.
What did you think of Mal? He's a little bit different, isn't he?
Big unit.
Yeah.
The first thing I thought was there's lots of line-outs, number one. He's going to catch them for sure. But, big unit. It took me a while to get the lie of the land with all those lads, like who was in charge, who was the sleeping giant, who was the bookworm, who was the joker, who was the...
Who was in charge?
Who, I don't know, to be honest.
It was quite funny. I can remember having a chat with Cheika at some stage when we were talking about line-outs, and we moved off line-outs, and Cheika says, well, look, I've made a decision who's going to be captain. And there was a lot of lads putting their hands up, including myself. But I obviously didn't tell him. I just wanted him to select me as captain. But he said, all right, I'm going to go with Brian. I went, Brian O'Mara? And I was like, nah, mate, Cheika. I went, oh, all right, yeah. I didn't get it, Obviously, he was captain of Ireland at the time, and it was the obvious choice. But that's where Leinster was. that's where Leinster was,
And you should have been captain. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
How strongly did Mal feature in your thoughts for captain?
Well, mate, I think for a guy who he doesn't know, he must have thought I had ESP, because he said he didn't tell me he wanted to be captain, and he expected me to pick him for captain. How strong was Mal?
Tell the truth.
No, I went for Brian. Yeah.
Yeah, I did get captaincy once, Jack.
Yeah, what game was that?
Cardiff away.
Did we win?
We did.
Yes.
There you go.
1 out of 1.
100%?
Can't
We did,
complain.
yeah, 100%.
At that stage, so you went over...
I think we won.
you went over in 05. So as you discussed, 2000, you're setting up your own business. You're coaching Randwick. This is a big enough step up, I would presume, is it? Leinster, European Cup, all that kind of stuff. Were you in over your head? Were you thinking, let's see what happens? What were your thoughts going over?
Well, yeah, I didn't really know what to expect,
What did you embellish to get this job?
No. This is the only time I really told the truth. So, yeah, the job. Told them I'm probably not the person you want, really, and they gave it to me anyway. It was... the last meeting... Well, I better not say anything, so I'm not going to be able to tell you what happened, right? One of these days. But the last meeting... Because I must have come 3 or 4 times, because I think they didn't really want me, but they were interested, So, because I didn't have a big name like many of the other coaches who would have been coming here, And it was very interesting. I didn't think I was going to get it, but when I did, I said to myself, well, I better make sure I pay these people back, because obviously they're taking a bit of a punt here. Like, I could see it. I don't think it's disrespectful to be saying that they took calculated punt, because I thought it was too from their part. So I wanted to make sure that I paid them back.
Shane, what were your impressions of Michael Cheika?
My first impressions were he was late. We had arranged to meet in Birmingham Airport. I was in Leicester at the time, and we were staying, it was the Novotel or whatever, holiday airport. And I was like, he said 7:30 or whatever time it was, and it was 25 to 8, 20 to 8. And he was literally sitting around the corner, and I was around another corner. So he was probably going, this fucking so-and-so is late, and how dare he stand me up? I've come over from Dublin, and he's not here on time. And met him in that airport, and he was saying, would you be interested in coming home? And we had a conversation, and I'd never wanted to go anyway. So for someone to offer me to come home, I was just, oh yeah, I'll think about it. / if you have a contract, I'll sign it now, kind of thing.
You didn't say that at the time.
So no, it was brilliant. And obviously, being from Dublin, being from Leinster, I genuinely didn't want to go to Leicester, but it was the best thing I ever did, and I learned a lot. And I'm just watching Leinster when I was in Leicester. Like, first of all, I wanted to play them. I hated Leinster, how they didn't want me to stay enough, and so I bitter and twisted. Probably still am, Joe, according to you. And I just wanted that opportunity to play. Came back as an opportunity now to where you're made to actually see if you can compete. And I just knew the talent was there, so it was great. Great opportunity.
like it's mad to think of it now, but that there wasn't even, it seems, a dressing room when you arrived where the players could all tug out. You were all getting changed out of the back of a car for training every day.
Yeah.
Up until what year? Maybe 08, 09?
No, we weren't.
No,
that
it was the
rubbish.
second-
So
your second
we got
year
ourselves
checks.
organised before that.
Well, what year
It
then?
was your second year,
Second year we got
we
our
moved to David
Okay,
Lloyd's.
so
we had
06,
we had
07.
a couple of porter cabins. Mal had a nicer car than everybody else, so he could get changed a lot better, you know what I mean, out the back of his car. But no, and then we went up to David Lloyd's. What was that
In
called?
fairness, though, Checks, the first year we were there
Yeah.
in David Lloyd's, the changing room was about the size of a cubicle, and Checks' office was about 10 times that size. So there was like 50 of us in this tiny little one, and Checks had this massive office. The following year, I think Leo came back. The following year he said, "Look, Checks, is there any chance you'd and fair play you did. You moved office, and we took hold of that changing room.
Is that right? Okay.
And we never looked back.
I was getting free tennis lessons next door at David Lloyd, so I was fine. Polish guy was giving me free tennis lessons. He was a good player.
Did the dressing room make a big difference?
100%. And I mean it in a very positive way. Like it helped us with building our culture, building socially, without having to go out drinking. You know,
Yeah.
you could actually have chats, have fun without the coaches being there. You know, it was good crack. You know, it was a great dressing room.
Yeah.
It was imperative, genuinely. Honestly, it was funny because we didn't have it. I remember coming into Leinster and we were changing out the boot of our cars and porta cabins, and you changed in Old Belvedere Rugby Club at the time, but you were in a car to go back up to the gym. And for a team to gel and bond, it is imperative. And like I remember, that team Czech was talking about enjoyment. There was 40 lads in a tiny little dressing room, and the crack we had, like every day there was just characters taking the mick out of each other, and we trained hard, and if someone didn't pull their weight, you'd call them out, and it just gelled us, like it does with every team.
Yeah, it's
and
important.
it's just part and parcel of it. But the fun we had in that small space was just bizarre. Like we're like a bunch of 16-year-old kids for like 20 odd years.
Yeah. And so, 'cause when you're in David Lloyd's getting dressed, like just the punters are there out of the gym as well, and you're next to them. Is that what's going on?
No, we were down the back. We were
Right,
down the
okay.
back, yeah, away from everybody.
What did you make of the whole setup? What did you make of the playing group that you had? Where were they short?
Well, it was. You got to remember, you got to look at everything with perspective, right? So you've got to think about where I'm coming from.
Yeah.
So I get here. I didn't know a lot of these lads. Like considering I didn't know Beyonce, there was a good chance I wasn't going to know a lot of these lads, right? So
You knew Mal though, right?
maybe not. No, mate, I wasn't into watching that much footy. Like,
Sorry, can we go back to how you got this job? What happened in that meeting that you can't tell us about?
but yeah. Well, I thought, man, these guys are good. Like I saw them at training.
Jeez, this Brian O'Driscoll kid's good, isn't he?
Well, yeah, I thought these guys are good. Like they've got some ability. There's a few holes like you've got to fill and build in, which is absolutely normal. But there's a lot of the style of game that I like to play. There was a lot there to work with. You know what I mean? And so we just had to start building it and building on top of maybe the flaws we did have and keep going and see what happened there.
And can you talk to us about how you did that or what that involved? Because the word culture is often talked about when we talk about you. You know, there's 10-year anniversary now, or we've often done shows where your name comes up, as you might imagine. And it's things like, well, Cheika changed the culture. That's one of the big lines. Can you talk to us about that from your perspective?
Well, from my perspective, the players changed the culture. You just set the direction. The players wanted to. Well, you heard what Shane just said there. Like, I didn't ever want to leave. I want to be here. This is where I want to be, and once you realise what you actually want, I think that's where I can help them. Is say, what do you really want out of this? Like, do you want to hold up the trophy? Do you want to have a team that people in your town and in your province support and will be behind? And do you want to live in that world, or do you just want to play footy and go home at the end of the day. I think you've got to guide people there, but then they've still got to take it and run with it. You can't force culture, whatever that is. It's not a real great word for it because that comes from generations and generations and generations of, a nation's DNA. But they built that amongst themselves from the lead that was given and very much player driven. Once they just got a bit of direction as to what to do, because you don't know what you don't know. And if someone gives you a bit of a lead in, then you can take the ball and run with it.
Because you must have been, I would say all of you were a bit horrified in the 06 semi-final against Munster, and it's a sea of red. Or, there's the phenomenon of the Leinster fan who doesn't seem to identify with the Leinster team and supports Munster. All of that seemed to change, I would say, under your watch. Were you aware of that? Were you conscious of that?
But I understood that, that if we were to compete with them, Munster, then we would be close to they were one of the best teams around. So if we could compete with them, then we'd be close to the top of the tree as well. So they're right next door. So set that as I think that's pretty logical. Set that as the target. Go and compete with them, not just on the field, but off the field as well, whether it be in how we deal with supporters, youth development, all that type of stuff. And then you'll be pretty close to the top, and you'll see where you go from there.
From the outside, it looked as if it seemed to be the right time, the right coach at the right time, where Drico and a lot of the guys and yourself, Mel, were around for quite a while, pissed off at the idea that they hadn't been winning at Europe. A couple of nuggety guys brought back from Leicester. And I say that with the greatest compliment, Shane, by the way. He's still awkward and nuggety, now. But so suddenly all those groups come in at once. And if a coach lets them, gets out of their way and gives them a kind of, I don't know, whether it's the freedom just to have a go themselves and just to try and live it and believe it. Because I think an awful lot up to that period of time for Munster would have felt that they had won over them. They felt they were in control of those games always. They felt very strong in relation to those games because these guys, they don't know whether they wanted it enough. And so did it feel like that, that you're there, this is the right time? Would it have worked 2 years before? Would it work 2 years after?
It's always about being in the right place at the right time, I think, for coaches and the groups, whatever it is, business. It's about understanding, but you've also got to understand what that time, what is happening at that time. If I put it in the most simplistic form, success will come when you do the things that you don't really want to do all the time. And I think all I did with these guys just guide them into the things they didn't want to do all the time and made them do it initially until then they started to want to do it. And then from there, they just took a life of its own. For example, run up that hill. Well, what was the big hill we used to run up? What was that one? Killiney Hill, yeah. It was a big hill, actually. But I think I used to tell them, you've got to run up there and you've got to smile while you're running up there. That's pretty forced, I think. But then, the other day I remember taking the boys, the Wallabies, when they came into training camp, and we went down, because even though the Super Rugby coaches wouldn't have wanted me to, we went to a nice big hill, had a DJ playing at the top, pumping out the tunes, and they were just running up, running down. The Sydney Roosters came down, they ran hills up there with us at the same time. I think that's all they needed, was just to say, this is the stuff you don't want to do, that you've got to do. And then the rest, they had the ability already, the majority of those guys. And then we added some good players, and then you still need a little bit of luck, which you earn along the way anyway by doing that stuff.
Mal, he has the reputation of being a tough taskmaster. What was he like after defeats? What was he like when things weren't being done the way he wanted them?
Well, we did have a 24-hour rule amongst the players not to approach or antagonize Cheika after we lost. It was, do not approach the wild bear. I can remember one time in Glasgow, we lost to Glasgow away, and it was like a real kind of, it's old school kind of changing rooms, like changing rooms. You know, there was only, and there was a pitch. There was no stand, no nothing. But we lost this match. It was just a terrible loss. You know, we should never have lost them, but we lost them. Anyway, Chex was fuming. He was fuming. He wasn't happy at all. Let's say, and we were all in the changing room, and Chex was outside, and we could just hear him going absolutely mental at everybody that was close by him. But post 24 hours, Chex always had a plan. He always he certainly gathered himself. I'm sure as I said, he was raw with us. I'm sure he's sorted all that out now. But he was. But yeah, it was exciting times, that's for sure.
Well, on the sorting it all out, we have a video of him here in action at half-time. There's no sound with this, unfortunately, but maybe you can tell us what you're thinking. This is from a recent game, so it's half-time. What is the gist of this? To be fair, it's not too bad, but you're still very lively, you're on your feet, you're still intense.
You say you like enjoying yourself, don't you?
Is that like go out and have fun?
I just put the towel over the camera. They tried to bring it in at the start.
Is that right?
And we said no, we wouldn't do
Joe, at least that's at half time or at the end of the game. I don't know if it's the same game. I remember we were coming back from Glasgow after that defeat. And it's funny when you look at it, but like I can still remember this and how important it was. We stopped off, we got the bus back from the airport, we're going along the quays, and there was a few lads laughing, and the bus pulls over, and people are like, someone getting off here? And then just kicks off. And I was going, this is brilliant. Because, and everybody, like, we were embarrassed, we were pathetic, and people were having a laugh on the bus. Now, granted, I understand people deal with it in different ways, but we had someone who called us out and said, how dare you behave in this way, and you're wearing a jersey that you should be proud of, you're from this area. I'm not from this area, and I'm caring more about it. And he called every single one of us out. And genuine, I can still remember, still exactly remember the bus was. And after that, I said, you know what, we have a chance now. If actually people take that on our chin and we actually address it and try and improve. So, whilst it's jovial seeing that, and that stuff's important. It really is important, and that had to happen with us because we had a cause.
Yeah.
Because, like Keith said, Munster had it's obvious. Munster and Leinster didn't like each other. They still don't like each other. That's brilliant. That's really, really good. But it's not nice seeing your biggest rivals get the better of you, and we needed that cause. And Chex, he's been modest about it. He gave us that cause, and for an outsider to do that, it's pretty powerful.
And how did someone Mal is a laid-back character when you're trying to get tough on things like timekeeping and doing things by the book. How does that go down?
You can't. Genuinely. But, like, that's the beauty of Mal, and I'm not saying it because he's beside me, because I'd love to be like that. I remember I was rooming with Rocky before some games, and he's asleep, like, 10 minutes before we have to go down for a meal. I'm there with my book on, and that line out, and this line out, and this, and if we go here, and I can't just relax and chill out. Whereas Mal can take it easy, and then he knows how to switch it on. There's nobody better than could switch it on like Malcolm. Don't be fooled by a fella who's just like, oh yeah, what's happening? There's a beauty to it, genuinely, because when we needed him, we turned it on. And that was difficult for me because I was kind of like, we have to be doing this, and we have to be doing that, and if you're not doing that, and I was just like, as you mature and as you grow, you appreciate people have different ways and manners in which they can get the best out of themselves and get the best out of each other's, and you have to develop and understand that.
Though Andy Dunn told a story, I don't know if you were there, he turned up in a dressing room and seemed to have had an interest in pre-match meal. Were you there?
I wasn't there, but I heard about it.
Is this the hot dog story? This is folklore. It's also a complete urban myth. But anyway.
Never let the truth get the way of a good story.
Can I just bring it back a little bit further?
Well, I was late.
If I give you my opening meeting with Mal was the night before we played New Zealand in '97, his first test. And I walked in to see him inside in his bedroom. We used to have all the doors were left open. We were staying out in Killiney, and all the rooms were open. He kind of guys would call in the night before. And I went in to give him a bit of a pep talk, and I didn't really know him. And I said, listen, just to tell you what the game is going to be like, it gets really fast. You'll be running one direction. The ball will go the other direction. Don't worry about it. You'll get to a beat to it after a while, and you can ask at any stage. And if there's anything to worry about, I said, have you any question to ask? He says, you know me, buddy. I don't give a shite. And I didn't know him, and I said, we're playing New Zealand tomorrow, and I've got this Muppet with me. And he went out and he played a stormer the following day. And it took me a long time, because I always liked Mal, but my God, he was driving me mad, because you were never... He was brilliant on the field.
What is the folklore story that Mal says isn't true for people who haven't heard it, Shane?
So the story goes... before, I don't know what game it was.
It was Edinburgh in the Heineken Cup, and it was in Donnybrook, and I arrived in just as they were handing the jerseys with a big lump of mustard on the side of my face. And it was like, just arrived in just as they were handing my jersey to me. It was like, Brendan Mullen was giving my jersey, and I was like, oh, thanks very much. But it was not mustard, but the rest of it was true.
Right, okay. You mentioned Rocky Elsom there. If you're talking about 2009, it seemed like he was man of the match in almost every game.
He pretty much was.
Yeah.
13 man of the matches that year.
He was Cheika's little special friend that he brought over. The two of them were tight, just like Joe and Johnny through the successful years a few years later. But there was one great story. Like, when you talk about the dressing room, like, there was such genuine characters and great fun. There was one guy, Stephen Keogh from Limerick, who was playing up in Leinster for a fair few years, and he was behind Rocky as every other 6, or if Rocky was playing 7, every other 7 would have been behind him. And we were training in Donnybrook that day, and we'd go back up to David Lloyd Riverview where our dressing room was, and there was a few that were up there a bit early, and Cheik was back in his office, and word got up that there was a crash in Donnybrook, and it was Rocky. And people were like, really? Jeez, I hope he's okay, blah, blah, blah. And as the word was going around, you see Cheika bolt by the door, out the car park and up the car, and Keogh puts his head out the window, and he's like, shh. He goes, don't worry about it, it's only Kevin McLaughlin. So then he goes, fair enough, and turns around and goes back into his office. Now, when I say don't let the truth get in the way of a good story, some of that is true, and Kev, I'm sorry, but that's the kind of, Keogh did that. And it probably wasn't a crash, it was a little fender bender as well. Oh, dear.
The bloke was apologising because, I'm sorry I crashed into Rocky Elsom, I promise I won't do it again. The poor guy in the other car. Rocky, he had the accident, there was a car accident, and everyone's looking for him thinking he's, where is he? Has he gone to hospital? No one could find him, and then we went back up to the thing, he was in the gym lifting weights. Wow. He just left the car in the middle of the road. He's back up in the gym lifting weights. Yeah, this guy's a genius.
Some of your teammates can't be here, but some of them have sent a few messages. So have a look here at the screen.
Jex, this feels a little bit like a cross between This Is Your Life and an obituary. But I certainly don't have any morbid thoughts of your time at Leinster. Looking back to the team that you inherited in 2005 compared to the one you left behind in 2010, we have so much to be thankful for. A relative unknown coming from Randwick. All I heard was that you were an absolutely filthy player. So, the hard edge that was going to bring anyway, if nothing else, we're going to get a bit tougher.
The abiding memory that I have under my time with Chex was his ridiculously bad nickname that he had for me.
Good evening, everybody. I was lucky enough to join Leinster at the same time as Michael, 2005, and spend 5 years under his watch. World-class coach, unbelievably driven, sense of purpose, resourceful, highly emotionally intelligent, and makes people better on and off the field. We owe him a huge gratitude, anyone who played under him, He's certainly turned Leinster around and changed our mindset from being a little bit soft underneath to having a hard edge and having a winning mentality. Unbelievable coach, and we wish him. I certainly wish him all the best at the World Cup with Australia.
He used to call me Inkjet. My name being Toner, you put Toner into a printer being Inkjet. It was ridiculously bad, and he called me it every day.
Kia ora from sunny Wairarapa. Cheika, he's the man. Firstly, I want to say congratulations to Chicks. It's well done on your career so far. You still got a long way to go. I think it's a good show in honouring you and what you've done for Leinster and for yourself and your family. Chicks has been awesome for me and my family. He's firstly brought me to Dublin. I came there on a 1 month medical joker or 3 month medical joker, and I ended up staying 5 years in Dublin and enjoying myself along the way. And Chicks also took me to France after that. So I owe a lot of my career and my life, not only for myself but for my family as well. He gave me a lot. I learnt a lot off him, and I'm sure so did the rest of the boys on and off the field. I was there. When we went, when the tide was just turning, where Leinster were turning into a good force, and I owe a lot of that, and I'm sure all the rest of the boys do too.
But on a serious note, he was an unbelievable coach. To me, it was him and Bruiser first that kind of gave me my first shot, and obviously himself and Jono kind of pushed me on after that. So I'm forever grateful, obviously, to him for giving me that first chance. I think, obviously, he thought he saw a little bit of something in me. So, yeah, I'm very grateful for that, and, yeah, I wish him all the best.
I must say those 5 years were brilliant years. Me personally, I think you were the reason that I stayed in Ireland and didn't go further afield, because it felt as though we had a chance of winning. I didn't think we'd definitely win, but it felt like we had a chance of winning with you as coach, and with the mentality change that you brought to the team, with that winning culture that you tried to develop. You broke us to build us back up again. And I think all those seeds that were sown back then, I think Irish rugby is reaping the rewards of them now. Because for me, a successful Leinster equals a successful Ireland. And we had a lot of fun with that lunatic David Knox that you brought with you for the first couple of years.
I was trying to think of something funny to say about Chicks, but I couldn't think of anything. You either got an angry Chicks or a down to earth, straight up guy, and that's all you need. So from me and my family, to all of you in Dublin, and to Chicks, cheers for everything. Thank you. And I'm standing here in my wife's shop, what is called Churchfields, after the estate we lived in Dublin. So have a good night, enjoy yourselves, and I'll see you in May, and we'll have a scoop there.
It was always enjoyable listening to your team talks. Never did I hear repetition. Never did I get bored of what you were going to say before matches, and that takes a smart person and a well-thought person to come up with new ways of saying the same thing. And only great memories, and from a personal point of view, one of my favourite coaches to hang out with now and catch up with. A great person as well as a great coach. So welcome back. I'm really sorry I can't be there tonight. Definitely feels like this is your life now, but have a beer for me.
There we are. Really nice. That's a pretty good testament to you, isn't it? That's just a handful.
Jeepers.
Nice.
I feel like I should go to my own wake now. Where's the wake on it?
I think we got to get Stan right to a roadshow as well. That's takeaway number one.
You'll need a translator, though. I'll tell you right now.
You can see a glimpse of the bond there, and the lads talking how close you all were. How ballistic, irritated, angry were you when you're working so hard together, you're moving in the right direction, and then you can be dismissed as ladyboys?
Well, I didn't think that. I don't think that type of language in reference to people who go on the field for combat sport is appropriate. It doesn't matter. Like, it's not things shouldn't be personal like that, either. Everyone's doing their best out there. There's no need to personalise it in nature. I don't think the lads cared that much.
Did it bother you? Did you use it?
No, yeah, mate, I used it all right, don't worry.
We used it.
How did he use it?
How do you use it? Oh, the article was up in the changing room. I mean, the match changing room, not the training changing room. Like, no, he was pointing at it. He was doing that, and he was doing that. Yeah, for sure.
Because that was the image of Leinster that you wanted to change.
Well, that was only his image of Leinster,
Sure.
right? I wouldn't be taking that as gospel just quietly. I think there was a lot of people out there that were supporting the team coming from the first time at Donnybrook. We always tend to focus on the people who want to criticise, but then behind that, there's a massive majority of people who want to get behind their team. You just got to give them something to get behind. So it's a fine balance between accepting criticism that's warranted, which you must do all the time because it's part of the improvement stages where you've got to accept that criticism and then move on with it, and then also standing up for your rights, you know what I mean? Standing up for the people who are going out there to bat for you and going out to represent you. It's always a balance, and you've got to keep yourself really clear on when's the time to stand up and rage against the machine, if I'm in that, or accept the criticism and say I'm going to get better for knowing that. And I think that when you care, which is the key word here, caring, when you care about it, then those decisions are really easy to make.
You're about 10 years this weekend from the Harlequins game, the 6-5 game. That must have felt like almost the culmination of everything you were working towards. 6-5, you had such a fight.
Great attacking potential that day. We just were scoring tries for fun, not. The one thing I remember about that game, and we can talk about tactics and all those types of things, the biggest mistake that the Harlequins made that day was to give all our supporters seats together at the stand at the end, because they were making more noise. And the whole game was being played up the other end of the field, mind you, because they were attacking our line non-stop. But they made more noise than I've heard an away crowd make. Well, for a small group of people, they had that whole back stand at the end, and they were just going crazy for the whole 80. I remember the players talked about it extensively afterwards, and how that sows the seed of, well, we can't let those people down now. Look what, they probably got us over the line that day. The people in that back stand that were yelling and screaming in that game. So it was just amazing of how the crowd can connect with the team. And often in the teams, we talk about how we can get our crowd connected into the game. What can we do in games to get our crowd connected with us, so that they're a very powerful weapon when they're on fire.
Yeah, I'm sure Croke Park is an amazing memory for all of you as well. There's somebody here saying, I know Shane Jennings told the story the last time he was on about visiting Croke Park before the Munster game. Ask him about it again. Because you'd never seen a GAA pitch at that stage of your life, is that right?
I played in Croke Park with St. Colin Kills, I'll have you know, at under 11, yeah. Do I have to say this story again?
No, you don't have to if you don't want to.
Well, it was kind of I hadn't a full appreciation of the history of Croke Park. So that week we were, Jex and the coaching staff had us humming, to be fair, and come Tuesday afternoon we were ready for the game. We had kind of got a lot of our prep done, and I'm sure Munster was the same. Whenever you're ready for a big game, you're just waiting for the game, so you're killing time. And the organisation had come on an awful lot as well, and the marketing department had worked on reaching out to the province and getting the bigger supporter base, and there was flags all around kind of Connolly Station and around the city, and then Clonliffe Road throughout the week. So it was building up. So I went down on our day off on the Wednesday and went into Croke Park to get a flavour for the museum and the ground or whatever. But I was kind of in the zone, and you've nothing else to do with your life. I wasn't working, I didn't have a family, so I was just constantly thinking of the game, and I had Last of the Mohicans on repeat over and over and over. So I was just like, when's the game going to come kind of thing. So I went into the lady at reception. I was like, oh, I'd like to see the museum. She said, oh, great, yeah. Are you going to come to the game at the weekend? I was like, oh my God. I just hit the roof. I was like, how dare you? This is exactly what Chex was talking about. None of these people care about us. They don't know who we are. And like this lady hadn't a clue. She was just doing her job. And I was just like, that bitch. And going around like angry at looking at all the history of it. And but I jest and say like everybody had a reason. But genuinely, everybody had a cause. Whether it was the comments that were dropped by journalists, whether it was something that happened a few years previous in Lansdowne Road, and I just had a kind of cause. I said, if we don't win this game, Leinster Rugby will go back, who knows, for the organisation, for the province, for the supporter base, for the players. It was just, we couldn't lose that game. And I think that was just my individual motivation. I was like, this is our town, this is our team, we got to prove ourselves, and we got to be known, and we got to get the respect of people. Whereas this lady was just in the wrong place at the wrong time for me. And yeah.
Sexton obviously famously comes on in that game. How much were you holding him back? Like, were you fairly clear in your mind that Contaboni was still very much the man? I know Johnny Sexton probably feels should have been thrown in there earlier. Was that a big thing for you at the time, do you remember?
Well, I had to hire personal security, you know what I mean, to travel around with me on a day-to-day basis because I was worried he was going to gun me down, you know what I mean? Because he'd give me some death stares from the reserves bench sometimes, like, I don't know, just look up and go, okay. And you know.
Was he the type who'd knock on your door and say, put me in, come on?
Oh, he wouldn't even bother knocking. He just come straight on in. Yeah, no, come on in, mate, you're right.
And what was your answer back to him?
Oh, mate, it wasn't easy because they're both good players, you know what I mean? So I just had to go with the flow and see what happened. And it took care of itself in the end, unfortunately for Felipe. And the fella got his chance. But he'd had a few chances before that in big games too. Like I gave him a few big games to, you know, cut his teeth on. And he was always going to be ready for it when it happened. So.
Did you always see him as ending up almost World Player of the Year territory, and he was going to fulfill all that? Did he have the potential?
I don't know about the awards and all that stuff, but he was definitely going to be a gun player. Right. You know, he was going to be in charge of that team for a long time, both that team and Ireland for a long time. It was pretty clear.
What did it mean to you to win the Heineken Cup with that team?
Yeah, it was pretty good. Like it was.
Don't go over the top now.
No. I think I suppose the essence of, if you want to find the small essence of coaching, is the sort of 30 seconds at the end of the game where if you watch the reaction of the players, I sat back and watched it when it was happening, and you feel you're distant from it because you're off the field. There's a genuine sense of disbelief, and you see that in the reactions, you know, guys jumping up and down and with no one around them, you know what I mean? They look like lunatics if they weren't doing it if you didn't have the circumstance and the context. And it's just that little brief moment when you see the people that you're involved with achieve something that they didn't actually think they could do something they didn't think they could do or believe they could do, and then that means they've garnished the belief throughout the time that they've been in with you that they could then go and do that. So, and that lasts for that small period of time until they really realise that they did it. So, winning was, I felt, a return on. I wanted to pay the club back for taking a punt on me. You know, I mean, I was only a small part of that, but it was it was a good feeling, good for the supporters.
It almost cements the bond, it seems, as well, between you as a group. I know you're all having a 10-year anniversary later on, but it seems to cement all of that work as well in some ways.
Yeah, look, you know, I suppose, winning is a pretty big part of what we're attempting to do here, you know. So no matter what team it is, you want to be a winner. That's why we're playing. And when you do that, it makes the connection even stronger. The connections and the friendships would be there regardless, but the sense of, I suppose, the shared experience of winning together just takes it to another level.
Yeah. I guess you guys must have really fond memories of that day as well. Any standout ones?
Well, I can remember after the final whistle blew, you know, or as you say, you're almost in disbelief. You're running to each other and you're hugging each other, and then I see Shaggy, and obviously had been through so much with Shaggy, and we're hugging and we're kissing, and it was like suddenly we're kind of going like, I don't like this, and then we go running off to someone else. But it was like, I have this picture at home of that moment, not hugging Shaggy, but of the whole team, and you're spraying the champagne, and everybody's there except Cheika. But Cheika is you can actually see Cheika is about 50 yards, right about the halfway line, just looking around and taking everything in, you know. And you know, like Chex was our leader, you know, and he was always slightly separated from us, you know. But you knew that he was more passionate than all of us, and he wanted it so much more. And you could just see what it meant to him on his face. He was just taking it all in. It was a wonderful day for us all, and you know, one of those special ones, you know.
Yeah, well said. Shane, any standout one for you?
Well surmised by Mal, and yeah, like I played in a final. I think it was 2 years previous, or 2 seasons previous, and lost a Heineken final, and not for my home club. And I've never watched that game. I can't even remember the result. I've tried to erase it from my memory. So the point being, you can get to a final, and when you lose a final, it's probably the wrong thing to say, but you might as well have gone out in the first round, kind of thing. So it was just nice to get to that, and from a, Mal said it better than I could, but like from a collective point of view, the two things I remember through my whole career is after that game, I was quite emotional with my mother because I'd come back to Leinster because of a family situation with my mother, and it was just a bubbling mess. And then the second one was when we won it a few years later, when we actually had to stay after for one of the lads had a urine test, and we just sat in a room, just the team and the squad, and we're just having a beer together. And it's those moments, like we said, where that collective group, the backroom staff, the people that nobody would know here, the amount of time and effort that they put into you, whether it's a physio or a rehab guy or a strength and conditioning guy, that's the bond that people probably don't appreciate that we try to articulate, where when you win something, it's just so satisfying and so enjoyable, and the fun you have, like you were talking about, in a tiny little room, taking the mick out of each other 24/7 for weeks on end, running up hills in Killiney. And like lads are in pain, and the end goal is when you actually achieve something. It's quite a special feeling, and you don't appreciate it when you're playing because you suffer the losses more than you enjoy the wins when you shouldn't. And then when you can actually reflect back and go, do you know what, it's great to be part of something when we actually achieve something. So yeah, there's special days. Yeah, it's incredible.
We'll round this off by going to the social wall. People have been asking questions, #OTBHRC, so they're going to come at us now. A question for Michael, as you're an experienced coach, if you could go back to that 2009 final and you could put on either Stander or Jack Conan in a date, who would you choose?
Sorry, if I had to do what?
Back in the 2009 final, if you could put in either CJ Stander or Jack Conan in a date, who would you choose?
So who's a better player? Is that what they're asking me?
I'd say so, yeah.
Man, I've got no idea. Like, I don't watch them enough. I couldn't... They weren't playing... Was Beyonce playing? I don't know.
We'll go to the next question.
I'm confused.
Who is the most gifted back you've ever coached, Michael Cheika?
Oh, please. I've got to coach people now. What happens if I don't say one of them?
Can we exclude the Australian team?
No, you can't. You can't. I can't call that. Until I'm finished, I can't call that. I will say this, though, that the guys here were pretty amazing. I used to watch them do all these tricks and that after training and say to them, if you ever do that shit on the field, you're going to be in big trouble, right? And then one day we played a game here in Lansdowne Road, and O'Driscoll passed the ball over, I think it was Hickey's head.
It was against Ulster.
Ran around the back of him and caught it. And I'd seen them doing it at training, you know what I mean? So they absolutely did the opposite of what I said. And still were successful with it. Like, they were pretty pretty creative bunch, the guys here, once they got themselves going, yeah.
Yeah. We have one more, I'm told. If Shane Jennings could play one more professional game, who would he have played beside him? Sean O'Brien or Stephen Ferris?
Stephen Ferris has obviously sent that one in, hasn't he?
Stephen Ferris, because he's going to sit beside me in about 5 minutes.
That's a good answer. And that he will. We're going to take a 5-minute break. Stephen Ferris is going to join us, so run and grab a drink or run to the toilet. But round of applause for the panel, everyone. Back in 2 minutes.
I'm busting.
Yeah, go.